Hey people, I'm sorry, really sorry, but we're back and I got a lot of surprise for you. But as for today, I got something special for you. You know, it's crazy how my favorite franchise is Resident Evil, yet my entire YouTube channel, I haven't made a video about it. And what makes this even more interesting is that the things that I want the most in games that I made a video about, like key hunting in Doom and well, everything in Tomb Raider, especially backtracking, has been done in more polished way in Resident Evil. So ladies and gentlemen, I bought the first 3 Resident Evil on GOG, which is definitely the best way to play these games, and I decided to talk about peak survival horror trilogy. Started with, of course, the first Resident Evil game. No, not the remake, but the 1996 original Capcom game. Is it that good? Is it balanced? Is it still playable? And of course, what it did to survival horror genre. Grab yourself a green herb, mixed with some good old red herb, and let's investigate how evil is the Resident in 1999.
Someone is a traitor. Everything was plotted from the start by Umbrella.
It's July 1999, perhaps the most iconic year in video games. You and your squad come to investigate what happens to Bravo Team, being Rebecca Chambers and some other members from Bravo Team. But then suddenly, a weird thing start to happen, and the squad is being attacked by weird paranormal creatures. You lost almost all of your squad except for Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, and Robert Wesker. And Barry. You go inside the mansion and here starts the magic and what Resident Evil does excellently, which is environmental storytelling. You hear a gunshot nearby and you go to investigate with Barry if you play as Jill. You later found out a zombie with this terrifying and definitely the most iconic one in this game. Soon after that, the common rescue mission turns into surviving mission. What is weird to me, Resident Evil has never struck me as a game with strong presentation, but the Spencer Mansion story has definitely caught my eye, and it sure delivered a lot, not necessarily with the writing, but for sure with the creepiness and horror vibe. The more you progress with the story, the more you find out more about the incident, which often described in notes, but don't worry, they are few and far between and don't tank playtime. And the more you start to learn about the corporation, which is Umbrella, a pharmaceutical corporation set in Raccoon City, which is developing a secret biological weapon and getting rid of witnesses. The story is very rich and complex and makes you think a lot, especially there sure has to be a mall here because all of the evidence leads that way. That's one thing, and the other thing is that the mansion does tell quite a lot of stories without saying a word, like this guy standing here, or how the whole place is set with traps and how all of that attached to you being constantly attacked by weird monsters that seems emulated by someone or something. And one of the more good examples of how to do a horror game is Resident Evil 1, and the genius ideas mixed with horror mixed with the survival genre, because having less ammo and sacred health definitely plays more into the horror element and being obnoxious all the time in a good way. That's why many games after Resident Evil 1 simply mixed without thinking the horror genre with the survival genre or subgenre. Zombies sound make things even scarier, along with the outstandingly amazing soundtrack that can feel both creepy in places, giving hope in places, and feeling confused in other places. That's why I really love and adore the idea of the saving room, along with the comforting music. Voice acting is not the best, it's way too cheesy and nonsensical in some cases with the character.
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
That feels like they are trying to be dumb or cheesy.
But something's wrong with this house.
Whoa. This hall is dangerous.
Which definitely does not match the rest of the presentation and the excellent set pieces and the creepiness of Resident Evil 1 story. The graphics on the other hand definitely shines here and everything is clear and straightforward, and that being, I have played games like Tomb Raider and sometimes stuff that don't look intractable or climbable turns into the opposite, especially in Tomb Raider 3, and Resident Evil 1 is 2 years older than it. There's no such thing in Resident Evil 1, everything is quite clear except for a few times, and these few times are mostly ammo or something that is not very necessary to progress, even though it might be important, and that because necessary things will have a glimpse in Resident Evil 1. Though Jill having a beard is not something that I wanted to look at. Other than that, I don't like about the presentation is the no skipping cutscenes, but leaving that aside, given the time of this game, this is quite excellent and very, very brave and pushed a lot of boundaries. survival horror was kinda new, at least to the mainstream eyes, so doing it might as well be a leap of faith back then. But Capcom had a vision, and I guess it came to life pretty gracefully. Resident Evil 1 is exactly how you would design your gameplay, and that being every element in the game is important, otherwise it isn't in the game. Key items are very important to obtain, and you might need to save them for 1 or 2 hours ahead, because you might need them later. When you find something new, checking items might reveal new and important things, so everything you take from the ground is extremely important and will help you one way or the other. And the gameplay have 2 main elements. Much one of this game's strongest points. Resident Evil 1 gameplay is genius because it relied just enough on the survival element to help the horror vibe in the game. Fighting zombies seems easy, but that's not the point. The point being, do you want to kill these zombies now, or you feel like this ammo can be saved to do other stuff? There's also 4 guns for Jill, being pistol, shotgun, bazooka, magnum, each serving a different purpose. Pistol for small and slow encounters such as zombies, shotguns for quite bigger encounters or in case you want to save the pistol's ammo. Bazooka is the big deal here that you want to use very carefully because it one-shots most enemies. Really helpful with the serious Sam-looking creatures. Magnum does the same thing but with more accuracy and speed and head decapitation. It is very genius that you have to think before you shoot or which gun you want to use. Sometimes even shooting zombies with a pistol can be the wrong idea if you have less ammo for it and more ammo for the shotgun, because zombies usually take 5 of pistol ammo, so if you have 4 you cannot kill the zombie and you might resort to using guns with more scarce ammo like the shotgun, which would have more sense if you used it in the first place. While not a lot, but Resident Evil 1 have quite the strong and effective guns that feels very distinct from each other, and that's not the end. Health status are fine, with sub status being green and yellow, then cautious with sub status being green and yellow, and then dangerous with the same rule. So if I'm calculating it correctly, there are 6 to 7 health levels here, so using the herbs can be detrimental. Yes, the healing herbs, which is one of the most iconic Resident Evil things now, came from this game. Green herbs for only 1 status, the spray for whipping 6 levels, but don't worry, Resident Evil 1 goes a step further and make other types of herbs that can be detrimental. If you mix the green herb with the red herb, you get a full health restorer, being 6 levels. If you mix the green herb mixed with the green herb, you get a full status. So if you are cautious, you would be on fine, but if you are low on cautious, you would heal to be low on fine. You can also use the blue herb to heal poison status, which is definitely overused here in the map. Saving is quite important here because you can save in the saving room only with your item box, since you can only use 8 items for Jill. So you gotta be careful of what you bring in. For me, it was always kill zombies first in this section and then put your guns to the item box and loot everything. So yeah, survival is quite amazing here and one of the best, if not the best. Puzzles in Resident Evil 1 vary from amazing to very good, and still to this day, one of the best games to ever do it in my opinion. Each puzzle is obviously different from the other, but the main 3 types of puzzles are pulling puzzles, placing items puzzles, sense puzzles. Pulling puzzles are usually the second simplest type of puzzles, like the ladder puzzle to get the map or get the crank, or sometimes they go a step further like the armor puzzle, which you have to just put 2 status in 2 different places, then press the button and that's it. That one didn't really work for me, but it was early game to set you up for more complex style of puzzles, like the gas door in the laboratory. Damn, that word is hard. Which you have 2 boxes and stairs. You have to get into the vent. You have to engineerily style calculate how you can push these boxes or the stairs without blocking yourself or the object that you're trying to push. So when even pulling can be this fun and clever, you are definitely doing something right. Second type of puzzles is definitely the simplest one, which requires you to put objectives in specific places, like putting the emblem in the other emblem to open the door, or playing the moonshine with piano to open the hidden door, or playing CDs to get the passcodes. And even these work in a good way, because if everything is pulling or sense puzzles, the puzzles themselves wouldn't have the same impact. And third type of puzzles require you to use your brain, so COD and FIFA fans, just delete. Come on, we're just joking here. Holy shit, no we're not. Like the life room puzzle, which the paint reads all living things are destined to die. So you have to press them in the correct order. You have newborn, then infant, then lively boy, then young man, then tried middle-aged man, and finally old man. Damn, if that's not clever puzzle, I don't know what is. Or the amazing puzzle being the computer puzzle in laboratory. You have to enter the username and then the password, then another password in order for you to open basement 2 in laboratory. so there's a file nearby. The writer says his name is John and the password is his wife, which is Ada. Sound familiar? And then the last password is something you have to figure out, but thankfully he gave you a 4-letter sample. You have the word written on the pane in this room, which are symbols that look familiar to the one John mentioned. So there is a switch in this room that you see the word with being translated to English, and then you have to calibrate each word and the counterpart in the sample's language, and then you can get access to the computer. Wow, is this puzzle amazing. And trust me, I can go on and on about puzzles like the crank puzzle, underground, or the elevator puzzle, but would be here all day talking about the greatly and fully baked puzzles of this game. But these are what sticks mostly. Yes, Resident Evil 1 is a loose cannon in puzzles that might be sometimes simple to some, but people, remember, this is 1996 and they play greatly in 2025, so that's all I'm gonna say. Replayability in this game is quite strong for the second playthrough, which I played as Chris Redfield, and there are major differences both in events and puzzles. Chris Redfield can carry only 6 items and you cannot save unless you have ink ribbon, which is extremely scarce, like only 14 I think in the game. You start with less ammo and definitely in more dangerous events compared to Jill, which made the first hour a nightmare to get through for me, because simply if you do one mistake you kinda finish and should have resorted to your knife here a lot, which was something I didn't like because at that time in 1996 they didn't have the right controls for this type gameplay. More on that when we talk about Resident Evil 3. Anyhow, the other differences are Rebecca's appearance in the game, which Chris finds, and here it's very different in many events. Like now, Chris cannot play the piano, so Rebecca trains and then she played the piano for him. Or the plants and the guardhouse. This time Chris gets caught and Rebecca has to do one of the coolest puzzles in this game, being the chemical mixing, which was extremely satisfying to pull. I would also like to acknowledge that I don't think RE1 did it as strong as RE2 in their playability aspect, but this is definitely refreshing once you get through the first hour. Overall, this one definitely shows more cracks than Jill's playthrough, but it's still, without a doubt, a strong experience nevertheless. So that's it. Resident Evil 1 is a phenomenal game and one that I will remember forever, and I can't believe that I have slept on this game this long. It mixes horror and survival seamlessly, and everything you do in this game of value, whatever it is, shooting zombies or collecting stuff or solving puzzles or even traversing from one place to another. The save room changes video games forever, and the Metroidvania is extremely strong here. Backtracking makes sense and objectives are mostly well highlighted with few exceptions. Chris' playthrough would have made more sense if the description called it hard mode or something, because it can be misleading to a lot of people. Locations in later game are not as strong as the mansion, but definitely worth the time to explore and doesn't feel that far compared to it, and it do make sense. Overall, this is one of the most all-rounded games I have ever played, and it might hit a place in top 10 or top 15 games of all time for me. When Resident Evil 1 was released, it was considered by many gamers and critics as the best game of all time or one of the best, and still to this day it's highly respected, and I do think it's still one of the best games of all time. Alright, the first playthrough took me an exact 7 hours and 8 minutes as Jill, and the second playthrough of Chris took me 5 hours and 11 minutes, so a total of 12 hours and 19 minutes, which is definitely huge, all of which was extremely fun and quality time, even though this was one of the worst days to me because of my gum issues. Make sure to subscribe because we're gonna do every single Resident Evil game until we reach Requiem, and I promise you of quality videos because this franchise really deserves it, and I have very high numbers of surprises in the upcoming days. So thank you guys so much for watching and see you.